Good afternoon. In the year 2000, our church was stuck. Our systems were holding back our mission and ministry. We had a consultant come in and he talked to us about permission giving and becoming a permission giving church. Bill Easom defines permission giving as allowing individuals to live out their spiritual gifts without having to ask for permission from a centralized authority, as long as they enhance the mission of the church. Why might we need to change in our local churches? Well, a lot of how we are organized from our structures are based on maintaining the status quo, keeping things the same. And of course, if you're trying to keep things the same, it's hard to do new things. Often in our churches, there are strong themes of power and control that get in the way of mission and ministry. And honestly, we need to think about different ways because what we're doing just isn't working very well. Hierarchical structures can certainly get in the way. There's a story that I like to tell. It's a true story. Our fax machine broke down some years ago. This was before email. And we asked the trustees for a new fax machine, which was $80, and they approved it. And it went to the budget team, and the budget team said, "Oh no, we don't think so, because Eddie here on our team, he has a used one that the church can use." And so here comes this used machine, and I don't know exactly what was wrong with it. I think the tractor pulls wouldn't quite grab the paper all the time effectively, but it didn't solve our problem. But now we've missed the whole month and we've got to go back to trustees the next month. And so we said again the following month, we need a fax machine, and they approved it. It went to the finance team, and again, someone has a used one that they want to bring in, so they bring it in, and this one would send but not receive. And so finally, exasperated, I got the chair of staff parish, the chair of trustees, and the budget chair together, and had them hammer out a compromise over an $80 fax machine. It took 3 months. So as you can see, sometimes our systems get in the way of effective ministry. Permission giving in the life of a church brings a change of attitude, a refocus of our energy, a reduction in the number of committees and meetings, an increase in ministry, and an explosion of joy. Why should you consider permission giving? Well, first of all, it's biblical. When people wanted to do things, they felt the call of the Holy Spirit, and they followed that. They didn't have to jump through all of these hoops to try to get things done. Permission giving is also much more effective than all of the layers of meetings and power and control that we have to go through. To set up just some simple guidelines and turn people loose to follow their calling, it's much more effective. And finally, I would tell you that the best reason for moving toward a permission-giving structure or attitude is that the most exciting part of being a Christian is being in mission and ministry. Why should it just be for the pastor? Why should it just be for a few leaders? Isn't it something that every single one of us is called to be about and to do? Well, what are some of the specifics of permission giving? First of all, in permission giving, we reduce the number of committees, as many as we possibly can. Some of our folks just were absolutely concerned when we weren't going to have an outreach committee. Who's going to do outreach? Well, the answer to that is all of us do outreach. It's something that it needs to be in our DNA. All of us need to do it. Well, if we don't have a worship committee, who's going to get the candles and change the paraments? And the answer is, well, there's probably somebody in our congregation that wants to do that out of the goodness of their heart because they feel called, instead of them being on a committee. And what happens when people aren't going to meetings all the time, they aren't spending their time going up and sitting around in the church room for an hour and a half, rummaging through some agenda. They're doing the things that God has called them to, that are a blessing to their heart. Permission giving means living out your life based on a call. What's in your heart, instead of the phone call from the pastor saying, "Hey, we really need someone to serve on this and such a team. They only meet 12 times a year. We promise it's not too much suffering." In permission giving, there's no more forced ministry because we allow ministries to come and go. If something runs its course, it's okay to allow a thing to be put to rest. All ministry is based on what people are feeling led to do. Nothing is forced anymore. Something else that I found delightful about permission giving is it ends endless reporting, where the trustees had to go to board and report that they fixed the plumbing. And someone at board is going to argue, well, why didn't you pick ABC plumbing? And honestly, it's insulting. Our trustees don't report to the board. Our staff parish does not report to the board. Although technically maybe they're supposed to, we put people on trustees that can manage the plumbing and the air conditioning, and we trust them to do so. So the board doesn't pick through every single report of every single group. Someone might ask, well, what does the board do then? Well, the board reads books on mission and ministry and vision, and the board talks about ways that we can enhance the mission of our church. And we are creating leaders in our board by enculturating them and teaching them how to effectively articulate what it is that our church is doing. In permission giving, we cancel unneeded meetings. So there may be 12 trustees meetings or 12 staff parish meetings scheduled during the year, but if there's not enough of an agenda to have the meeting, we cancel it. In fact, with email, if the agenda is small and we can get through it by email, there are times we'll go months and some of these groups won't be meeting because they're taking care of their business by email. We put an end to unnecessary meetings because all of us know unneeded meetings sap energy and are just a burden on our hearts. Permission giving really hinges on the concept of call-based ministry, that every member pray about and hear God calling them. And this has to be taught and articulated not just by the pastor, but also by staff and leaders in the church. It has to be reinforced over and over and over, just like Christians in the Bible were called by God and did things. So we in our life are called by God to mission and ministry and service. And when people start to feel the warmth of that and say, oh my goodness, God has placed something on my heart, all sorts of ideas begin to bubble up. And you might ask, well, what do you do with those ideas? We ask that when people bring ideas for mission or ministries, that they're able to answer 3 questions. The first one is, does it fit our mission of connecting people to Jesus Christ or making disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world? How does this idea fit our mission? Almost all of the ideas that have come forward have. There have been a few that had an awful lot of self-interest or something that was going to help my business, and we had to shut those down because they were off mission. But most ideas fit our mission. The second question is, who will do it? A lot of times people have an idea for a ministry and they come and they say, oh, I have a great idea. Here, church board, you tell everyone that they must do it. And so they dump their idea on the congregation. We tell people, if God is calling you to do something, He's calling you to do it. And so in order to answer the question, who's going to do it, somebody needs to come not just with an idea, but with a list of people. I'm going to do it, and I've recruited Ed and Sharon and Bob and Joan, and we have this little team that's interested in getting this mission or ministry off the ground. The third question then is about how's it going to be funded? Because everybody has an idea and a calling, and they want it to be dumped on the budget. I don't know about you guys, but at our church, there really isn't room for anything to get dumped on the budget, especially in this economy. And so we tell people, if God is calling you to a thing, there's probably some plan that can help you pay for it without running around the church asking everybody for money. So we mentor them and help them work on ways that they can take responsibility for the financial end of a ministry. Almost everything that comes along is either free, doesn't cost anything, or it's self-funded. So the 3 questions are, does it fit our mission? Who's going to do it? And how will it be funded? And if someone can answer those questions, we turn them loose. And because of that, there's just oodles of things going on in the church. Something that I found to be delightful about permission giving as well is this notion that the budget administers itself. In the old days, even though we had a budget, each month the budget team would meet and approve every single aspect, every single expense. They'd go through the checkbook and yes, no, and argue about different things. Well, we've completely done away with that now because if something is in the budget, it's already been approved. It does not need to be approved again by the finance team. If we put $20 a month in for the youth to buy pizza, they don't need for that to be approved in February and March because we approved it en masse throughout the entire year. It's interesting in the life of the church. The discipline says that our finance team is to set the budget, administer the budget, and raise funds to meet the budget. Most of the folks that get involved in this process in the church, they want to set the budget, they want to administer the budget, but very few people are interested in raising funds to meet the budget. In a permission-giving setting, the budget can administer itself. And so you see that really, while there are some structural things that can go along with permission giving is largely an attitude. It's a belief and a choice that we're going to learn to say yes. I think the bishop wrote a book recently, something about just say yes, and the power that transforms an organization when they begin to look at what's going on and find ways to say yes and turn people loose for mission and ministry. In our old system, we had so many committees, so many teams, that we had people on these. We had people leading these that didn't even go to the church. We had members of the trustees that might be members of the church, but we hadn't seen them in years. Why? Because we needed warm bodies. When you begin to decommittee and you reduce the structure of your church, you have the wonderful opportunity of putting your best people into the few leadership positions that are nominated. And this has been a delightful process for us to sit down with the nominations or the lay leadership team over the years and talk about qualifications for nominations. And we've actually made a list. The first one is you must be an active member. We don't put people on teams to try to get them involved in the church. You must be an active member. Secondly, you must be highly committed to the mission of our church. Number 3, no axe to grind, no hidden agenda. Number 4, and this is a very interesting one, but so important, they must play well with others. There are people in our church that love me, that just think Jeff is the greatest guy in the world, but you get them in a meeting and they're caustic. Well, those folks don't get to serve on committees anymore, because when that kind of fracture begins to be introduced into meetings, it just holds everything back. And we insist that our people are committed to prayers, presence, gifts, service, and witness. Spiritually engaged in the life of the church, a joyful, positive attitude, attending worship, proportional giving, and hands-on service. And what we found is as we have nominated and introduced healthier people into leadership and had fewer people that we actually had to nominate to official things, our church began to smooth out and find more of the joy and peace, just because healthy people were involved in leadership. Our results have been fantastic. First of all, there's no more infighting in our church. People don't have time. They're out living out their mission. They're out living God's calling upon them. The mission has become central. The pastor and the staff spend time in ministry and deploying people, mentoring people, instead of trying to manipulate systems to get results. There's been an enormous increase in the number of Bible studies and Sunday school classes and mission opportunities and all sorts of things that people felt God was calling them to do. And of course, that has brought a greater sense of joy and fulfillment. So that's a little bit about permission giving. If you'd like more information on it, we're glad to come visit with you or your church, or if you're interested in coming to talk with us at Woods Chapel, we're more than glad to spend the time with you. Thanks for listening, and have a great evening.